Hello party people, it's Bells. Welcome back to my channel. It's the best video of the month. I feel like I've been waiting all month to film this. It is the Tarot TBR for March, and oh boy, it is gonna be such a good month. I changed pretty much all of the prompts. I added an entire actual Wheel of Fortune that you guys can actually go and click on and play along if you are playing along with this game, with an extra 22 prompts on top of all of the ones for the cards to kind of switch things up, make it feel more like an actual game. And on top of that, I'm adding a secret prompt for myself that all of the books have to work with that you guys won't know until my monthly wrap up at the end of the month. So guess away. I'm hoping this turns into just a really fun, interactive, community-centered game rather than just me playing with tarot cards. We have 12 cards to get through. These cards were so excited to use all these new prompts. They gave me 12, and it's only 12 because I had to stop pulling them. God knows I can't read 12 books in a month. So we'll see how this goes. I do have a brief announcement before we get started. I'm going down to releasing just one video a week instead of two. I want to be able to focus on more videos like this, more research heavy, creative videos, rather than kind of just churning out whatever content I feel like making at the time. I enjoy making these videos more, and I think it shows in the view count. I think you guys also enjoy these more. If I'm not posting as much as you're used to, sorry, but I am just here to make better content for you guys. And so I think it's a win-win for everybody. Now, we've got a lot to get through. Go and pause this video, make yourself some tea that's really hot, and let's bring on the books. Okie dokie, so as usual, you can check out all of the prompts and rules on the updated Google Doc. I'm also, as usual, always using my Folklore Fairy Tale Tarot deck by Yoshi Yoshitani. I'm gonna send you off to shuffling the cards, and when we come back, we're gonna get started. First tarot card that I pulled was the Nine of Coins reversed. I love this card, it's so cute. So the story on this card is the Legend of the Watermelon, also known as the Watermelon Prince. And let me tell you, there's 15 different versions of this that I read. I linked the one that I have here below if you want to read the whole thing. It's a story of how the watermelon came to Vietnam. King Hung adopted a son named My An Tiem, who was really, really smart. And at a banquet, the king basically orders a servant to give him a really special dish to commemorate things. And My An Tiem says, no, what is given is actually a debt, and later tells the king that the only things that really matter are those we can do on our own. The king gets mad, because kings get mad when you tell them no, I guess. And so ships My An Tiem and his wife to a deserted island to truly live on their own. If you can't take help from anyone, then you're gonna live by yourself on this island. On the island, My An Tiem found a group of birds eating some black seeds, trusted the birds' intuition, plants the seeds, and months pass. Eventually big green fruits, so the lovely watermelon grow. At some point later, My An Tiem basically carves his name into a watermelon just for fun and throws it into the ocean. Of course, it washes up on the shore of his old home, and a woman finds it and brings it to the king, hoping for a reward for finding this strange fruit. So when the king saw the fruit and saw his son's name, he was reminded of his son and forgave him, sending a ship to the desert island to bring My An Tiem and his wife back there, along with a bunch of the watermelons. When the card, the Nine of Coins, comes up in a spread, it represents success and hard work, independence. You can finally enjoy the fruits of your labor, pun intended. When it's reversed, as it is in this spread, the card kind of represents more self-worth than outward work. Don't burn yourself out vying for wealth. I've changed all the prompts, so they're all brand new. For the 9 cards, it's the next book in a series that's already been started. And for coin cards, I'm looking for something that's tense or funny, the mood tense or funny that I use on Storygraph. And what I picked was, excitingly, The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, which is the second book in the Mistborn series. It follows Vin and Ellen venture as they strive to build a new society after the destruction. I'm just like so excited to have an excuse to read this book. It finally got into the library, so it feels like really divine timing. That was the Nine of Coins card. Our second card pulled was the Six of Cups, also reversed. The story here is the Snow Queen. This is like a children's fairy tale, so it's a little harder to like scrunch down. It's actually like 7 stories put into one. Again, read it for yourself because it's fun. But here's the story. Once there was an evil wizard who made a dark mirror, and if anything beautiful was put in front of the mirror, the reflection showed something rotten and gray. He wanted to share the mirror with the world and flew up into the air to share it, but dropped the mirror and shattered it. The wind blew the shards of glass all over the land. If the evil glass blew into anyone's eye, they would only see the evil in people, not the good. Years later, a boy named Kai and a girl named Gerda were best of friends, but one day a gust of wind blew the evil glass into Kai's eye. He stomped all over their garden and told Gerda that he never wanted to play with her again, and ran out into the street with his sled and just like kept running. He kept going until he saw a big white sleigh coming down the road, and he tied his sled to the back of the sleigh so that he could go faster. The sleigh was driven by the evil Snow Queen, and once she knew that he was dying from the cold, she stopped the sleigh and kissed him, once so he would not feel cold, and a second time so he would forget Gerda and his family, and he was then under her spell. She took him to her snow castle, and Kai didn't come home for days, and Gerda searched everywhere for him. She asked a witch, took advice from a crow, was imprisoned by a group of robbers, got more advice from some doves and a reindeer, and finally found an old woman who gave her specific directions to the palace of the Snow Queen. Gerda found Kai sitting on the frozen lake near an empty throne. He didn't recognize Gerda, but as Gerda wept at the loss of her friend, the wind blew her tears into Kai's eyes and washed the glass away from it. He recognized her immediately and cried with joy, and they escaped and ran home. The Six of Cups, you can kind of see it and kind of feel it in the story. It's a very nostalgic card. It takes you back to past happy memories, shows harmony and cooperation in your relationships, even inviting you to like get back in touch with your inner child. When it is reversed like this, it's possible that you might not be living in the present moment or are taking on too much of the heaviness from like adulting. And it kind of suggests you should just make time to have some fun. The prompt that I have for the Six of Cups, for 6 cards, it's a book under 300 pages. And for Cups cards, it's an emotional or a sad story. The book I picked was 15 Dogs by Andre Alexis. Basically, this is like about a bet between Hermes and Apollo that leads them to grant human consciousness to a group of dogs, and the dog pack is then torn between those who resist the new ways of thinking and those who embrace the change. I think I'm gonna cry at this friggin' 125 page book, but that was my pick for 6 of Cups. Next, we have the 8 of Coins, also reversed. I really like the picture on here. I couldn't really tell you why, but I really do. The story on here is the 6 Swans, which is actually one of the Grimm fairy tales. The story is that a king gets lost in a forest by himself and asks a witch for help. She says yes, but only if the king marries her beautiful daughter. When he meets the witch's daughter, though she is very beautiful, he was super scared of her, but took her out of the forest, married her anyway. Now, the king had married before and had 7 children with his first wife, but fearing that his second wife would hurt them, he hid them deep in the forest, so hard to find that he needed a magical ball of yarn to find them. However, the king visited his children so often that the queen noticed and discovered the magic yarn, visited the children, and turned them all into swans, except for the king's only daughter, who hid very well. The girl ran away through the woods until she found her 6 brothers, who were able to become human for 15 minutes each day, and told her that the only way she could break the spell is if she didn't speak or laugh for 6 years, and sewed 6 shirts out of asters, which are like little purple flowers, for them. So she said that she would do so. After a while, the king of a new land found her, asked her questions. She didn't answer, she didn't speak, but he was so captivated by her beauty that he married her, which like, there's a lot of stories that I feel like we've gone over where the king is like, wow, you're so beautiful, I'm gonna marry you, even though I don't know anything about you, you don't even speak. A lot to unpack right there. But over the years, these two had 3 children. Each time, the king's evil mother, who didn't think the girl was worthy because she didn't speak, would steal the children and smear blood on the girl's mouth while she was sleeping, claiming that the girl was a cannibal. Whoa. After the 3rd child, the girl still didn't defend herself, didn't speak up. The king had no choice but to burn her at the stake, which feels a little dramatic, but Sure. The day of the sentence was the last day of her 6-year penance, and her brothers appeared as swans, literally as the fire was about to be lit. Say what you want about the Grimm stories, they are dramatic. So she threw the shirts over each one of them, and they turned back into humans. She was able to tell her husband of the treachery of his mother. So his mother was burnt at the stake instead. Their children were brought back to them somehow, and everyone lived happily ever after, I guess. The 8 of Coins, the card, kind of represents the long haul. Like, you're in the middle of a long project, you're working hard to improve your skills. When it is reversed, as it is in this spread, it shows that you are focused on self-improvement and working hard to be the best version of yourself. Or it could also indicate like perfectionism is getting in the way of the bigger picture. My prompt for the 8 cards, it's a diversity read. For coin cards, I'm again looking for a tense or funny book. I picked Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. This is an LGBTQ+ book that's steeped in Japanese folklore, and it's a horror book about a mansion that is abandoned on top of the bones of a bride, and its walls are packed with the remains of the girls that are sacrificed to keep her company, and this mansion is chosen as a wedding venue for a group of adrenaline junkie friends. It's again like 150 pages, it's super short. I'm like absurdly excited to read this book. I love a good horror, so I'm super excited to see like where this one goes. So that was my pick for the 8 of Coins. The next card that I picked up was, again, the Lovers. God, doesn't this card love to come up for me? As we all know, the story is Beauty and the Beast. If you want the real in-depth version, go back to my first tarot video. But you know, gist of it, an ugly fairy curses the beast for not being seduced by her. Beauty's father steals something from the beast's castle, is told if he wants to stay alive, he has to bring one of his daughters back in exchange, and Beauty offers. Lives a very fancy lifestyle, slowly falls in love with the beast. She asks to go home after a few months to visit her family. He says, yeah, sure, but I will die of grief if you stay for too long, which is like a little gaslighty, but whatever. And her ugly and terrible sisters, think like Cinderella kind of, trap her at her house. By the time she gets back to the beast, he's dying. She realizes she loves him. They kiss happily ever after. Woo. So The Lovers obviously is about romance, duality, the importance of communication. Now, when it's reversed, you may be out of sync with those around you. It may speak to your self-love and your personal respect. The prompt that I have for The Lovers, I did change a little bit, and that is changed to a romance that you are excited to read. So, you guys will know this if you watched my like recent silly Let's Get Drunk video. I am so excited to read Neon Gods by Katie Robert. This is like a very spicy modern retelling of the love story between Persephone, the goddess of spring, and Hades, the god of the underworld. And like, I guess it could kind of be like a weird twisty retelling of Beauty and the Beast if you justified it for long enough. I've never read an erotic story. I don't read even like that many traditional romances, so I think it'll be fun. I don't know, what do you guys think? Have you read it before? Should I like prepare myself for something? I like have no idea what to do with myself around it. I'm like just excited. I'm just curious and excited. We're gonna move on. That was my pick for The Lovers. The next card is also one that we've seen before. This is the Ten of Swords, which is showing the Inuit story of Sedna. So Sedna is the Inuit goddess of the sea. The legend is very well known, very widespread. One version, during a violent blizzard, a young man enters a family's igloo, has sex with the daughter of the family, consensually, I assume, and in the morning the man is gone and there are animal tracks outside, and it's discovered that the lead dog of the family had been disguised as a man. So when his daughter becomes pregnant, the father takes her to a small island where he just abandons her, and the dog like provides for her while she's there. She gives birth to 6 children, 3 Inuit children and 3 kind of dog-like children. And the father returns to take his daughter off the island because I guess it's fine once there's no longer babies in you. But on their way home, a storm threatens to capsize the boat, so him and all his men are like, yeah, let's just throw this girl overboard. When she tries to climb back, her father cuts off first her fingers, her hands, and then her arms, all of which turn into different sea creatures, and she sinks to the depths of the sea to become Sedna, the woman who controls all sea beasts and is half woman and half fish. The Ten of Swords, this one's not reversed, which I think is very interesting. This card is about letting go, accepting your current circumstances. Often it can represent like a backstabbing or a betrayal, a significant change in your relationship. It's kind of like encouraging yourself to pick up and get on with your life. The 10 cards I have changed to be a 5-star prediction, and with the swords, it's like an informative or challenging book. The book that I picked for this one is On a Pale Horse by Piers Anthony. This just appeared in my book haul video. This is literally like the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie, but a man kills death. instead and then has to take over as Death instead of Santa Claus. I'm so excited to read this book. This was recommended to me by my partner's family. They are super excited for me to read it. So it's a 5-star prediction because I trust their taste, but also like, how fun. And also this cover is just, I'm like kind of obsessed with it. That was my pick for the Ten of Swords. The next card that has come up is the Page of Swords. The story represented here is Princess Parizad, and this is one of the 1001 Arabian Nights tales. This story has an entire other story attached to it. The backstory of this is literally called The Story of the Two Sisters Who Were Jealous of Their Younger Sister. I linked that version below if you're interested. It's wild. But for the sake of this, it's the story of Princess Parizad's quest for 3 magical objects. The 3 objects are the talking bird, the singing tree, and the golden water. She wants them for her garden and asks her brothers to get them for her. Prince Bahman sets off, finds a dervish who tells him that the quest could kill the prince, but basically like he'll come to a valley of stones that will try to get the prince to turn his head, and if he does, he will become a black stone like the rest. So Bahman goes into the valley, does pretty well, withstands the insults for a long time, eventually panics and turns to flee, turning into stone. So Parizad's brother Perviz sets out once their brother does not return, also falls into the trap. So Parizad goes herself, and once she learns of this stone trap, she stuffs her ears with cotton before she walks through the stones. The voices are not as overwhelming. She's able to reach the mountaintop where she finds the talking bird who tells her how to get the other objects. And so when she returns down the mountain, she sprinkles the golden water over the stones, turning everyone back into men. I think it's very funny that all of these stones are all men who then yell and insult whoever is coming before them. Some kind of critique happening there. But when they return home, Parizad uses the bird's advice to convince the Sultan that her and her brothers are his true children, and they go to live in the palace. And like, that's just like a wild, grifty ending to the story, this like parable. But the Page of Swords card, this is like youthful intelligence, energy, passion. You could do anything. The challenge is like to keep up with what you started. My prompts for the Page of Swords is a YA book that is informative or challenging, or I can spin the Wheel of Fortune. And so of course, because this is the first video with the updated rules, I spun the Wheel of Fortune. And I got the prompt, remove a card. I will share which card I removed when we get to it. We haven't gotten to it yet, but that was the Page of Swords card. The next card we have here is the Ace of Coins, and this is the story you might recognize. This is Jack and the Beanstalk. We all kind of know this story. Poor widow sends her son Jack to sell their only cow, runs into a man who offers magic beans for the cow. Jack brings the beans home. His mom's like, you're an idiot, what the hell? Throws the beans out the window, sending him to bed without supper. And then in the morning, there's a beanstalk outside. So Jack goes up, finds a kingdom with a giant and his wife. What I didn't know is that Jack asks the wife for food and she gives it to him, and then helps hide him when like her husband comes home. And then he straight up steals a bag of coins from them, takes it down to his mother, and they're like rich for a little bit. And so he goes back up and does this again, gets food from the wife, then steals the hen that lays golden eggs. And then he does it a 3rd time and tries to steal a magical harp, but the harp cries out for help, is like, hey, someone's trying to steal me. And so the giant chases Jack down, but because Jack is faster, he chops the beanstalk down and the giant falls and dies. And Jack and his mom are just like, happily ever after? What is this story trying to tell children? I just have a question about why we were told this fairy tale growing up, because like, to me, they just stole money from a nice couple and then killed the husband? Anyway, the Ace of Coins card, when it comes up in a spread, this card presents us with new beginnings, financial prosperity. There is the possibility of like a new endeavor. You are manifesting your goals, and it also like symbolizes wealth. So not just financially, but holistically. It's like abundance in all areas of your life. My prompt for Ace cards is an author I've never read before, and I'm again looking for something that's tense or funny. And so I picked Dracula by Bram Stoker, because I've never read it, and I know that's horrible. I've never read Bram Stoker, but like, it's time. Oh man. I'm so excited. After reading Mysteries of Udolpho, I'm much more invested in trying out classic horrors. So I'm so excited to see, like, because Dracula is such a basis for so many other books out there in the world. I'm so excited to see like where all those tropes kind of came from. That was my pick for the Ace of Coins. The next card that we picked was the Two of Swords, which I am obsessed with how this looks. I think it's so pretty. A word to the wise, my friends. Make sure your camera is charged before you start filming anything. Okie dokie. So the figure that is represented here is Sita, who is one of the main characters of the Hindu epic poem Ramayana, or the short-ish version of the story of Sita, is that she was found in a furrow while plowing a field, and King Janaka, who had no children of his own, adopted her. When the time was right, Janaka organized a contest that any person who could string the bow of Lord Shiva could marry Sita. So Rama, who is the Hindu deity that embodies chivalry and virtue, was the only one to draw the bow and actually broke it, to the surprise of everyone. So they marry, and a different king, King Dasaratha, announces his plans to crown Rama, who is his eldest son, as heir. The queen is upset by this news as she is worried for the future of her other son and demands that Dasaratha banish Rama to a forest exile, and Sita insists on going with him. After some time, Ravana, the demon king of Lanka, takes the form of a golden deer to lure Rama away so he could kidnap Sita. She is then held in Lanka and Ravana tries to marry her, but Sita manages to avoid it and maintain her chastity somehow. Eventually, Rama wages war against Ravana and rescues Sita, but she basically has to make this choice to go through the test of fire to prove her chastity to the world. The only definition I can really find for trial by fire is a test in which a person is exposed to flames in order to assess their truthfulness, commitment, courage, etc. There's like probably 10 or 15 different versions of how the trial goes, but she proves her virtue through it. Rama is crowned king. And then later, like years down the road, her virtue is questioned again by their subjects, and a pregnant Sita is then sent into exile in the forest where she raises her two boys by herself. Years later, the boys like go off and Rama reunites with them, I guess, because now that she's done all of the hard work, he gets to keep the children. So Rama asks her to return to him as his wife, and she says no, which I think is valid, and instead basically allows Mother Earth to take her to a better world. So this card, the Two of Swords, when it comes up in a spread, is basically like there's two options in front of you. It's a really hard decision and you don't know which to pick. If you can see on this card, on either side of Sita are Scylla and Charybdis. It's like that Greek story of the two monsters and you have to decide like which monster is the lesser of two evils. That's basically what this is. You gotta make a choice, try to be smart and pick one which reflects your values. For the number 2 cards, my prompt is a book with 2 leads, and of course it's a swords card, so I'm looking for something informative or challenging. And I kind of felt like I was between Scylla and Charybdis while I was picking this book. But I settled on The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, which is about a woman who's hiding her secret power in this like fantastical world, who's searching for her kidnapped daughter. And from what I understand, all 3 books have won Hugo Awards. Always down for a good fantasy, so I'm very excited to read this one. That is what I picked for the Two of Swords. So the next card that we pulled was The Fool. The story that is on the Fool card is The Little Mermaid, if you couldn't guess. We know the story of The Little Mermaid. Now, the original story is obviously quite a bit darker. It does actually have the mermaid seeing the prince on his ship. She rescues him, falls in love with him. He doesn't see her when he awakens. All the plot points that we know, the mermaid makes a deal with the sea witch to trade her tongue for legs. But if the mermaid can't make the prince fall in love with her, she dies. When she arrives on land, she realizes that every step she takes on the new legs is like walking on knives. And in the original story, the prince actually marries a different woman, and the sea witch allows the mermaid to stay alive if she can kill the prince instead. Obviously, she can't bring herself to do it and dissipates into sea foam. On top of that, the stakes are even higher in the story because apparently, mermaids don't have souls and humans do. Because she dies as a mermaid and becomes sea foam, she basically stays in purgatory for eternity. Which is like really fucking dark. The Fool is our first card in the major arcana. The Fool in the Fool's Journey, that is the tarot journey. When this comes up in a spread, it is a card of new beginnings and potential. Now, when it's reversed, as it is here, suggests you have a new project you aren't yet ready to share, you might fear the unknown, don't want to take any action, or it might show you that you're taking too many risks and acting recklessly. The prompt that I have for this is the most recent book added to your TBR. And so the most recent book that I had added at the time of filming this video was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Guys, I'm so excited to read this because you all know I loved House in the Cerulean Sea. Stay tuned for a very special video about that very soon. Under the Whispering Door is basically about this man who dies, but this man doesn't want to cross because he doesn't feel like he's lived his life at all. But when the manager arrives and gives Wallace 1 week to cross over, he basically has to live a lifetime in 7 days. I bet it's just gonna be so cute. I'm probably gonna cry my little baby eyes out. I'm just excited to read one of his books again. I just like truly, thoroughly enjoyed reading House in the Cerulean Sea, so I hope that this at least gives me a similar feeling of like wholesome and warmth, just like that one did. I have a feeling it will. That was my pick for the Fool card. The next card that I picked up is also one we've seen quite a bit before, and that's the Queen of Wands. And I think it's so funny how this seems to pop up in like almost every video I've done for this. The deity on here is Pele, and because I've talked about her a couple of times, I wanted to share a different story of our lovely Hawaiian goddess of fire and volcanoes. This one is that she and her brothers traveled to the Hawaiian Islands in a canoe that was made for her by her older brother, Kamohoali, who is the king of sharks. And then when she landed on Kauai, she was attacked by her sister, Namakaukahai, who is the water goddess, and left for dead. Pele recovers and escapes to Oahu, where she dug fire pits to hide and like regain her strength. But when Namakaukahai discovered that Pele was still alive, she returned and literally tore Pele apart, like ripped her into pieces and threw her around Hawaii. And so the idea is that when that happened, Pele ascended to become a goddess and dug her final fire pit on Hawaii Island, which is the Halemaumau crater, where many believe that she still resides. The Queen of Wands. This card represents a fiery, unstoppable force. When it is reversed, which we haven't seen it reversed yet, it shows that you know yourself on a really deep level. Your values are really clear. You may be more introverted at this time, but like it's really good to honor those feelings. I did not change the prompt for Queen cards. They are still female authors, but for the Wands, we're looking for something adventurous or inspiring. And so I picked Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, which I will be buddy reading with my lovely friend Fran over at Fran Nook and the Pages. You should go check out her channel. I'll link it down below. But Priory of the Orange Tree is about a queen who must have a daughter to protect her realm, a lady in waiting who protects the queen with forbidden magic, and a dragon rider. It's an LGBTQ+ fantasy, which is awesome. We love that, guys. I literally could not be more excited to read this. I've been wanting to read this for like months. That was my pick for our lovely Queen of Wands friend. We are down to the last two, everybody. Thanks for staying with me. The next card that came up was the Page of Wands. This card just like makes me smile. So the story here is Muyendo, which is an African epic. Muyendo was a hero with supernatural powers who went on like a bunch of different adventures. His story is he was the son of Shimuyendo, who was a powerful chief with 7 wives. And it was prophesied that this man's son would take over his throne, so he decreed that if any male child was produced by any one of his wives, he would just kill them. His favorite wife, Nyamuyendo, wound up having a boy who emerged from her middle finger and could walk and talk immediately. Muyendo used magic to protect himself against his father, escaped from being buried alive, breathed and traveled underneath the water when Shimuyendo tried to drown him, and like later on in the story, Muyendo leads his uncles to punish Shimuyendo and like destroys the entire village. And Shimuyendo fled into the underworld, where Muyendo followed him, made a deal with the ruler of the underworld, Muisa, to find his father. And when he finally found him, Shimuyendo apologized, agreed to share his kingdom with his son. They rebuilt the village together, and after a whole other adventure that happens, Muyendo also agrees never to kill another living thing. So the Page of Wands card represents a childlike optimism, a carefree rebellion, and when it's reversed, it suggests that something new might be stirring within you, but you don't really know how to put it into action. My prompt for page cards is a YA novel or Spinning the Wheel of Fortune. Since we already spun it, I picked a book for this one, and I picked The Princess Bride. Woo! If you guys just watched my vlog, you know that I was planning on reading it soon, so this is probably not a surprise. I've never read the book, but I can literally quote the entire movie off by heart. I'm very excited to finally read the book. That is what I picked for the Page of Wands. And the final card that I picked up was the Page of Coins. This is the story of Bavi Nieda, who is a Sami sun goddess. I had a hard time finding the story of Bavi. The Sami culture doesn't often personify the sun, but when they do, they personify the sun as Bavi. So she is the goddess of the sun, spring, and sanity, and associated with the fertility of plants and animals, especially reindeer, which is why you can see reindeer here. So on the winter solstice, a white female animal, usually a reindeer, is sacrificed in honor of Bavi to ensure that she returns to the world to put an end to the winter season. And when the sun does return, butter is actually smeared on doorposts to give Bavi strength so that she can continue to go higher and higher in the sky. When she returns, prayers are often made for the people who are mentally ill, as the Sami believe that madness was provoked by the lack of sunshine and light during the winter. That's really all I could find about her, but I just really love this card. I think it's really gorgeous. When the Page of Coins comes up in a spread, it's like welcoming a fresh start, new opportunities. You are manifesting a personal goal or a dream, and are just really excited about the possibilities of where it might go. It kind of represents like the initial motivation and energy of turning dreams into reality rather than the actual fulfillment of the dreams. And because I spun the Wheel of Fortune earlier and I was supposed to remove a card, I did remove this card from picking a book for the TBR just because I don't have a lot of young adult novels on my TBR. I just didn't really have a book that I was super invested in reading that worked with this card. So that was what I wound up picking. Those were the 12 cards that I picked for my tarot TBR and the 10 books that I will do my best to read in March. Some of them are really long. Like I know Dracula is gonna definitely take me some time. Priory of the Orange Tree is like 800 plus pages. Don't forget to guess and put in the comments what your thought is on my secret prompt for all of these books that I picked. And also if you have fun ideas for future prompts, I would definitely appreciate all the brainstorming opportunities. Don't forget to share that in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is gonna wind up being a super long video, but I loved it. I hope you guys loved it. Don't forget to go watch this video if you are looking for more content, and I am just so excited to see you guys next time.